Okay. Now, I don't see it as far as on my on the live streaming aspect, but anyway, the topic was Christianity and Islam being a threat to the world, and it is something that I see as undeniable that it is a major threat. What do you
Oh
guys
yeah.
think?
Well,
I would say that's
as far
all.
as I see, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that was all I had to say. I think it's very obvious that both, and most particularly Islam right now, are a genuine threat to stability for the whole world.
I agree with that, and also it seems like Christianity want to react to that threat Crusader style, which
Oh yeah,
uh, I'm not sure is a good idea. Um, from where I'm sitting, the reason I say that from where I'm sitting is for years and years we've been going ever since we reestablished Israel, which before we go further, I think has a perfect right to exist. Okay, but that's beside the point. Ever
yeah.
since we established Israel, we've been going over there on one pretext or another. Gore said it best. Over there, over there, over there. It's always about over there. When is it going to be about over here?
I agree.
Well, there is. It is pretty obvious that both the media and the government are largely ignoring the on-the-ground reality in the U.S. I mean, in the sense that, as far as a real terrorist threat in America, it's at this point, Islam is not what we need to fear, because it's very obvious that if you're going to be the victim of a terror attack in North America, the person pulling the trigger or blowing up the bomb or whatever is almost certainly going to be hardcore right-wing Christian.
Yeah, without a doubt. Because there's also the aspect that I think has to factor in of how the Christians want to try and turn the United States into a theocracy.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And they're wanting to take away the desire and the push to take guns away has to be among the things that we consider, because it's something that it's taking away people's ability to protect themselves.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, definitely. And there's a lot more. There, there are a lot of more ministers or preaching about gun control, and like the last Islamic terrorist act that placed in American soil, our lovely state of California, which I incorrectly, but nevertheless, California, because there's stupid gun laws. They blame it on regular American citizens like you guys and myself, gun-owning citizens and people who are in the military, what have you, when the threat was actually a foreign threat. I mean, these people, I guess, what I've read, they weren't vetted properly. They had Islamic tendencies. They wanted to strike what ISIS calls soft hits, which I think is really cowardly. It's not a new tactic. I mean, it's a centuries-old tactic. The Mongols did it. It's a very old tactic. It's effective in war, but the thing of it is, the way I see it is, in my own personal belief set, if you're going to go to war against somebody because they offended against you, then you need to go after those who offended against you. Women and children who are and other people, I mean, even grown men who have nothing to do with it, just want to live their lives, don't go after them. You're just going to make, first of all, it's not right. Second of all, you're going to make more enemies. Because then people are going to look at you and say, oh, well now, you got upset because this guy did this to you, but now look what you're doing.
Right.
So you're fighting a losing battle. You know?
I agree completely. There's also what gets me with Christians and their crap. I'll get to Islam in a second. But Christianity wants to try and put forward this idea of their forgiveness and so forth is based on their belief in this Jesus character. The problem with that I see is they have a mindset of basically they can sidestep their own personal responsibility by saying they think something. Well, if we did that in our society, can you imagine what that would mean? That any person that commits a crime, all they have to say is that they think a Jesus died or whatnot, and that makes it okay.
Oh my God, the people would literally be getting away with murder. They practically do now.
They would literally be getting away with murder because you could literally kill somebody, then go into a courtroom and say to the judge, "Oh, I believe Jesus died for me, so that takes it away." They think that this is how it'll work in an afterlife, but in a courtroom, they would be appalled. They would be the ones bitching the loudest that this isn't justice. If it's not justice in a court system, why would it be justice in an afterlife?
Well, Christian doublespeak shouldn't surprise you, gentlemen, because let's look at a very glaringly obvious example. They want to, if not establish an American theocracy, a Christian theocracy, they at least want to have more of a share of running the political show. We have a rampant problem around here in Lebanon County where most of the people actually think Jesus started the Republican Party and Abe Lincoln was a Democrat. And they're so tired of me cracking that joke. And they're like, you cracking that joke because that's how they behave. But yet, the Christians want to control our politics, particularly through the Republican Party, but yet they don't want to pay taxes. And I forget the chapter and verse because it's been forever since I read the Bible, but weren't their prophet, Jesus Christ, weren't his words, and I quote, "Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and render unto God the things that are God's." Now, I don't know how you guys might interpret this, because I can only speak for myself, but in my book, Jesus was telling the scribes and Pharisees, you have Roman money, pay Roman taxes, and yet these American churches don't. The only church I know that pays taxes is the Church of Satan.
That's
Nobody else does.
That is definitely an interesting connection to make.
Yeah.
Because there's also the aspect of terrorism and the use of torture. And this is a big one for me because it's the biggest reason why I walked away from Christianity in the first place, is the idea of if somebody doesn't think like you, they should be tortured. And it appalls me the Dick Cheney bullshit of it's not torture, it's aggressive or advanced interrogation. Oh, bullshit.
Cheney and Rumsfeld made me sick. They made me sick.
Well, Rumsfeld was famous for marching around the Pentagon, whistling "Onward, Christian Soldier" to himself constantly.
Oh God!
And you know, on the YouTube page that's behind this thing, I see on the page for the live stream, if the live stream ever happens, it says, here's a video, Jerusalem update, return to Christian values is the only way to fight ISIS. In other words, you know, what they want and how they wish to view it is as a religious war.
Right, and the thing is, if they're going to return to basically Judaism, they have to discard Jesus.
Yeah, but those contradictions, they don't care about them, they ignore them, and they just go with what they've got.
Mm-hmm.
And while the stuff like lot of things that we've been talking about recently are really interesting. And when I was a Christian, they would have had a real effect on me. But then I eventually made the mistake, a Christian mistake, of actually reading the Bible, which was the end of Christianity for me.
Yeah.
But for most of them, they immediately and thoughtlessly justify or just throw away inconvenient facts.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really care about the history of it. They care about what they're being told and what they think they're part of right now. And in their imaginations, they pretend they're part of a tradition that's 2,000 years old. And
that's true. Yeah,
it's
you're
a
right.
busted up tradition. It's not really a straightforward tradition that they can harken back to, because your contemporary evangelical Christian in America has nothing in common with the original Christians. Nothing at all in common with them. And I saw an interesting interview with a fellow, I don't know his name, but he was one of the head goblins of the Coptic Christian church in Egypt. And the Coptics are the oldest living form, still practiced form of Christianity. And the interesting thing that this leader said, he was in Egypt and he was constantly being visited by American evangelicals. And he said the thing he found so amazing about American Christians was that they constantly talk of morality, and yet they have none.
Right.
And that's a direct quote. And from the perspective of real Christians from that era, these people are just scum. And in fact, you could even make an argument that current American Christianity is the religion of the Antichrist, if you believe in that stuff.
Right. See,
That's it.
the biggest thing that gets me is Christians want to, and people want to talk about ISIS doing this beheading and so forth. And
Yeah.
yes, it's extreme. Yes, it is an in-your-face type of thing. But is it really all that different from the Crusades and Inquisitions that the Christians were doing? And
Well,
Here's a. Well, I can answer that question with a question. How many? Because remember where ISIS got their original training. How many good Christian soldiers trained the ISIS members, or if not them, the people who did train the ISIS members?
yeah.
Interesting. Because
As far as the political impact of beheadings and stuff like that are concerned, the Crusades was really quite a long time ago, and the effect it has now is extremely powerful, but it does create enemies. I mean, that's the sort of thing that turns a person like myself into an absolute willing, if necessary, to die for it enemy of such a mindset, such a dogma.
yeah. See, it gets me, and it's something that I personally think about, because the use of, like, where Donald Trump had said he would bring back worse than waterboarding. It makes me think,
Yeah.
what's he talking about? Let's be specific. What? The Judas chair? Maybe like the boots, or the breast ripper, the thing that they would use to cut out someone's tongue? What exactly?
Yeah, the Iron Maiden.
Yeah, what exactly are we talking about here?
Stretcher.
For him to just say that and people to go along with it, I wish he would be more specific on what exactly is he talking about. And he had said he doesn't care if it doesn't work; they deserve it. This is appalling.
It is. I agree, because it's like he's playing God, and this is what these two more things that get me about Christianity, and I'm sure the phenomena is mirrored in Islam. But the two things I notice around here is a lot of people that are so good Christians say that exact same thing. We are hit, push the button. They deserve it. They. First of all, who are the they?
Right.
And second of all, do they all deserve it? Okay, like you're talking a small core of fighters. You know, it doesn't take much to grab headlines. The world media in general, and the American media in particular, love reporting negative things because that's what sells. So if I go out in the middle of Cumberland Street and throw a pipe bomb with a small electrical charge has rubber sex toys wrapped around it, and I break some windows and I scare some old people and I shock people, wind up on a Megan's Law list because little kids saw a pocket pussy flying across Cumberland Street. Hey, that's big news. 100 angry Arabs with AK-47s and rockets kind of conflict. And for that small core, these people over here want to drop nuclear bombs on a population that's 99% harmless. I mean, we're talking little kids. You know, we're talking children and women and crippled people and sick people and people who never did anything. And the other thing that burns me up about the Christian phenomena around here, I don't know if you guys noticed, but when you drive around here, you'll see signs. Now, I'm all about the First Amendment, and it is somebody's property, which is the only reason why I control myself and just drive from the area as quickly as possible. But these signs, they have a message that says, Christians aren't perfect, just forgiven.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you guys how that drives my blood pressure up.
Yeah, it has the same effect on me.
I agree completely on that.
The implications are quite ugly.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
See, because it also comes down to how Christians want to have their way pushed and everybody else be treated like a second-class citizen.
Yeah, in effect, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It really, I had seen it with like the aspect of they want their Bible to be pushed as literature in a school, but then when it turns around that Satanists can use that and atheists and others, then they're all of a sudden,
Yep.
oh no, separation of church and state, separate. It's like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm. Both
Well,
ways.
many of them literally believe and put forth the position that freedom of religion in the United States referred to and refers to specifically to Christianity, that Christians have a right to have their various denominations, etc. And they insist that that's what it's really all about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just, I find it appalling how the double standard that they want to utilize, and I see it as just as harmful, just in a different way than ISIS. Especially when you have like the Duck Dynasty type of people. Granted, we're talking the fanatical aspect of it, but you can't ignore the fanatical aspect because even with, there doesn't seem to be fanatical Jews.
Oh, yes, there are.
I noticed that too.
Oh, yes, there are.
There are, really? I didn't know.
For one thing, in the world context, Jews are tiny percent of the world's population. And most of your real hardcore hate everybody but us variety of Jews, most of those live in Israel now. But your Hasids, for instance, I mean, some of the ideology that they have, some of the things they want to do, the way they believe, it's the best thing about Judaism is that Judaism does not want to proselytize outside its own group.
Right.
Ergo, they don't need Satan, for instance. They don't need opposition. They don't need an opposition God. And there are many differences when you're not trying to get the rest of the world to agree with you. You're just trying to get all of your own, what you consider your own people to agree with you, because the rest are scum and don't count. They are
Right.
goyim, which means cattle of the field.
Exactly.
Okay.
It raises, because my interviews with Mark Powers, I absolutely love them.
Oh, yeah.
Because they bring in an insight into the Bible and Judaism that as atheists we don't see.
No.
Because all we're having to deal with is what's in our face. And
yeah.
That's where some Christians may wonder, why are atheists like me so vocal? The reason is the sociological impact that these beliefs have. It is the same reason that I am vehemently against Trump, because of the subject of torture.
Yeah.
Because if a person is going to go along with torture in an afterlife idea, they're going to go along with the idea in a real life scenario.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yep.
And that's why it's so dangerous. That's why it has to be opposed.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, it has to be opposed too, because, like, take the Christian idea of a fiery hell with demons. It's all a lie.
Oh,
in fact,
yeah.
if you guys look in the original like Dead Sea Scrolls and the sources where the Bible actually comes from, you will not see the word hell there, because it is not in any of those languages.
The word hell in the in Hebrew is Sheol, which is the grave.
Exactly.
Yeah, when
exactly.
you become a shade,
that's what it's, yep.
way.
Mm-hmm.
It is simply not about what Christians try to make it into.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
exactly.
That is something, the interviews that I do with Mark, it's really... Tomorrow we're going to be talking about Daniel 9, and that's a biggie because it deals with the claims regarding Jesus as well as this end of the world crap.
Yeah.
Because Christians try to use Daniel 9 for both. And it's something that I'm looking forward to, exactly how a Jew regards Daniel 9 and what the issue is with that.
Yeah, I suspect it's going to be a very different perspective.
Yeah, I'm certain of it.
Yeah.
That it's not going to be anything about a Jesus or anything of that nature, because simply put, there was no such person. And the big thing that Mark has gotten through my head is, when you're reading the Bible, it's what's there. What are the words on the page saying? It is this idea of it's a matter of interpretation. Bullshit. It is a matter of what do the goddamn words say.
Yeah.
And
what do they mean? What do they specifically mean to the writer?
Right. And it's not, you can't look at it as what do you take it as today, because then you're trying to take it and insert your own sociology, your own viewpoints, and say that's what the authors meant. But the thing is, they wouldn't have had the social upbringing that even anyone today has, even those that are Muslims. And going with their book, it wouldn't be what are people today that are Muslim thinking about these things. It would be how were they looking at it. Yeah. What were they trying to get across? What was their idea? And it would have to be the same with the Quran as it is with the Torah, as it is with the Bible. Mm-hmm. That if the words on the page do not match what you're trying to say this is talking about, you're wrong. Mm-hmm. You're trying to rewrite the story to fit your narrative, but then you're changing the story.
Yep.
Well, Abraham was a Muslim, you know.
According to Islam, but that's...
I've heard that from Islamic speakers.
And it's one I was talking to Mark today, and I mentioned to him about something that I wanted to just put out there. It's easy to destroy Christianity, effortless, because all you have to do is use the Old Testament. Because Christians have literally tried to piggyback, smack on their New Testament with the Old Testament. But the thing is, if you actually look at what is in the Old Testament, it debunks the New Testament. It rips the legs out.
And that explains why a lot of Christians... Yeah, that explains why a lot of Christians aren't using the Old Testament anymore.
They are trying, the newer Christians are trying to distance themselves from the Old Testament, but the problem with that is they still want to cling to things like the Ten Commandments that were 10 out of the 613 laws given to the Jews. I am not a Jew. I am more Scandinavian to Norse in bloodline. The thing is, I would be no more bound to obey Jewish law than I am to keep kosher or to observe the Jewish Sabbath. The Jewish laws simply do not apply to me, which drives Christians absolutely crazy when I say that, because they want to be, oh, the Ten Commandments don't apply to you? Nope. You can go out and kill. Actually, the not killing, not stealing, so forth, that has nothing to do with the Ten Commandments, but rather it has everything to do with the laws of the society I'm in. Because
as well as the laws of personal decency,
we don't have laws against not going to church. We don't have laws against not honoring your parents.
That's true.
We don't have laws against what would be thought crime of believing in one God. Which,
that's true.
For Christians, FYI, none of you do. Because all of you, Christianity is based on a dual mindset. You have God and then you have Satan. You can't have Christianity with a singular God. It doesn't work.
Because he needs opposition.
Yes.
Because Satan is God in Christianity. I mean, they label it a fallen angel, but they've created an oppositional God who is the powers and principalities of the planet Earth.
Right.
And on planet Earth, Satan is a god.
And that is one of the things I got a kick out of when Mark said it in one of the early interviews. I asked him about fallen angels, and he said the only way an angel can fall is if they trip. I love it. It brings in, and it did bring in, the discussion of free will. And from the Jewish point of view, angels have no free will. They can only be what the God made them to be. Which also brings in a problem with the God character itself and free will for any of us. Because if the God knows everything that you're going to do, then where do you have the free will to do it? Just because,
why do we even exist?
Right. It's something I had asked Mark, and it's something I am going to talk about with him, but it raises the question of, if a God knew I was going to smoke. When I was a little kid, and my dad was a smoker, I got on him and gave him hell about smoking. And I was constantly up his ass about smoking. But then come 16, I start smoking. It was the one time I wanted to fit in and so forth, and I chose cigarettes to do it, which the one time I fell victim to peer pressure resulted in this shit. But the thing is, there are people that fall into this peer pressure and so forth all their life with different things.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is, to an all-knowing God, even back when I was a little kid and was up my dad's ass about cigarettes, it would have been sitting back and knowing you're going to be a smoker. So what I was doing, and back when I was a Christian, it would have also been looking at it and being, yeah, and come age of 24, you're going to walk away from that and be vehemently against it. So what would that matter? That period of time in my life when I was a Christian essentially was wasted. Because the God would have known that I would be not just an atheist, but an anti-theist. And if that's the case, where did I have the choice to do anything? All I was able to do was to live out what it knew I was going to do.
Well, yeah, because the idea that God knows that this entity even can know exactly everything that's going to happen, which is the claim, it means that everything was put into place, the structure was created before we even came into existence, which indicates very clearly that this God created humans in order to torture most of them for eternity.
Yeah.
Because by the Christian way of looking at things, the majority of the world of people who have ever been born are going to burn for eternity.
Yeah.
And what kind of character would do that?
Right, exactly. What kind of God are we talking about?
Obviously, a stupid one.
See, and that is something, if you're going to talk about a God and try to act like it is something that everyone has to bow to, the biggest problem I have with it is if you're trying to say that it is something out there, it will forever be separate from you. But if the God would be better applied to being akin to water, that a drop of water is as much, to use the term the ocean, a drop of water in the ocean is as much the ocean as all of the water in the ocean. And if you're going...
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That if you're trying...
That's a very good point.
If you're going to say that it is like, that the God is everywhere, and that the God, in a sense, knows everything, the only way it could be is if the God is part of every living thing. Which
kind of like the Force in Star Wars.
In a sense, it would mean that the God is experiencing reality not just from the point of view of the terrorist, of the suicide bomber, but also from the point of view of those that are appalled by that action. That it would understand...
Or the victims.
And the victims. And it would understand the mindset behind all of it.
Yep.
And that level of knowledge, that level of input would fry our brain. We could not handle that.
I know I couldn't. And what I do know, I wish I'd never learned.
The thing is, in order for the God with all the omnis and all the bullshit to actually work and be viable, it has to be a part of every living thing, which means there's no way that you can be separate from it. That there is no way it could torture anyone, because then it would be torturing part of itself.
That's true.
And that is, I think, the Achilles heel with there's a lot of Achilles heels with Christianity, but that is, I think, a big one. That they have to try and find a way to make those that aren't like them, they're the other, they're the enemy. So it's okay to devalue them, to dehumanize them.
Yeah.
It is exactly what terrorists are doing.
Oh yeah, you demonize people. They are at most just a number. They don't count. You're not doing anything bad when you kill these people.
Right. And that's one of the things I want to kind of smack Christians upside the head and point out. You're no goddamn different than ISIS. It's just to your team. And this tribal rah 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 my fucking team, I'm sick of it. I'm sick
I don't
of
blame
it.
you.
I'm sick of it with
Yeah.
the politics. Facebook has turned into a political fucking bullshit page.
Oh my God, yes. Oh yes, yes it has.
Oh my God, you can't go on Facebook anymore and not have politics shoved up your ass.
Or the fear of offending someone. Oh
Yeah.
my God, like this objectification of women I keep running into. I'm going to be writing a piece about that very shortly.
It just, another thing that irks the shit out of me is this idea, and it was one, I like Jimmy Carr. And he's a comedian, for those that might not be aware of it, and he has done bits on stage of basically how far is too far with a joke. And because he had pointed out, offense is not something that can be determined, that you can say, this is a joke that's going to be too far. It's one that offense is taken. It's not something that can be arbitrarily determined. Because what offends one person may not offend someone else. And he was, let's test this. And he went through a litany. And he gave one that he gave a disclaimer to. Of, it's just a numbers thing. And he said, you think there's slavery, you think there's safety in numbers? Tell that to 6 million Jews. The audience clapped, and he was like, applause? Seriously? Applause? But the thing is, he got in shit because he did a joke about basically a disabled veterans and a type of Olympics, that he made a joke about it, but the veterans weren't the ones that were getting upset. It was other people. And what I was hearing was, well, if you are one of them, you can joke about that. Wait the fuck, hold the fuck on. I've heard this shit with black people and the N-word. That they can use it, but other people that use it, oh, you're a racist. What the fuck?
And you know what the worst part about that is? In my experience, you know what the worst part about that is? It's you could say this is because of the disparity of the number of blacks or what have you, but people that seem to get the most down on so-called skin racists, and the people that bitch the most about white guilt and white privilege, whatever that is, I'm white, I sure as hell ain't privileged, are other white people. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the urge to stick up for the helpless. Oh, I'm all for that. I understand. I mean, I have black friends. I have black relations. Okay, I have blood relatives that are mulatto, which are half white, half black. Like Obama, he's not a black man, he's mulatto. But the thing of it is, some of my fellow white people get to the point, on Facebook, case in point, on Facebook 3 years ago, one of my female friends, I think she was a cousin of mine. Now, she's white. She's whiter than I am. Okay. She puts on, Whitey better look out now, because it was the first year that that the infant mortality rate among blacks and Hispanics was not higher than that among whites. And I put, seriously, Whitey better look, and I sent her a message saying, what color are you? Yeah. You know, I'm glad that people are glad. Nobody wants infant mortality. That's sad. The poor child dies before they're even alive. You know, nobody wants that. But Whitey better watch out now from a white person. I can understand that coming from an angry black person. I really can. But another white person, really? Well, you know, if you hate white people so much, set an example and kill yourself.
Yeah, it's
all.
What gets me, and it ties in with this, is and I'm sick of fucking hearing it, is this Black Lives Matter, and I've seen it as Blue Lives Matter with cops. It's like, why don't people just say all lives fucking matter?
Yeah. Well, this is what I tell
That's not
people.
what they mean.
They want to
I mean,
use
seriously.
this. They want to use this Black Lives Matter and so forth, and this color matter. It's a way of saying my team matters and your team is shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's rampant everywhere. No matter what subject you discuss, that's everywhere. What I tell people is this: you have to first. I use round numbers. I don't know if this is an exact number. I just say this to make a point. 99% of the people of the planet, no matter what their color, no matter what their faith, no matter what their ethnicity or their beliefs or whatever, 99% of the people on the planet are what I call normal. Now, how do I define normal? Well, I define it this way. There are 4 things that I know that at least 99% of the rest of the people on the planet also want as me. And I'm not sure if this is the right order. That's up to you guys to determine for yourselves, as well as everybody else who hears or watches this broadcast. But here are the 4 things that matter most to people, as per my experience in this life. To be understood, to be happy, to be comfortable, and to be loved.
Yes.
And I think if more people would take that to heart about their fellow human beings, all the rest of these divisions would just seem superficial and indeed silly. You know, because when I see, and I have an unfair advantage. I don't know about being born in Lebanon being called an advantage, but I was born in the city. I spent my first 4 or 5 years in the city. You know, it was back in the 60s. And I saw all kinds of colors. I saw brown, I saw black, and they were all grown-ups because back in those days, children were seen and not heard. So you didn't see too many kids running around the street. But I saw, you know, brown people, white people, black people. So I just took it for granted that when you grew up, you could be whatever color you wanted to be. They were grown-ups. What was there more to figure out? And they were all because they were grown-ups, and they were walking around doing grown-up things. So, you know, that might be part of the reason why I'm able to think like that. But, you know, these 4 things are what people want, and if everybody gets that through their heads, we might have a lot less, you know, turbulence on this planet.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, just so you know, one of the pictures that I put up with you, Eric, shows where you're in a band.
Oh, okay. Well, that's one of the more decent pictures.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
Yep. And it's wanting, for anybody that's curious, yes, you're the one with the shirt off.
Mm-hmm. Showing the body I had back then. Yeah. I wouldn't do it now.
You don't have the 6-pack anymore?
The 6-pack turned into a party ball, which wound up being a half-deflated balloon. And then since the surgery, it's, well, I don't know what to call it now. It looks like the 6-pack's trying to come back, and then underneath the navel, there's this. It looks like a roadmap. Maybe I should just stop talking about it. I don't want to make your audience sick.
Well, at the risk of making them a bit nauseous, I had mentioned about having hernia surgery not too long ago, and just to show you guys basically the scar that I have. That is, you'll see it when the video is done. That's what I'm dealing with right now as far as what it looks like. And to the side of it, there was a spot because I had a gauze padding on the front of it for about a week, and there was a blood blister that had formed because I guess it was just because of where the gauze was hitting the one side. But yeah, I have a bit of a scar that I'm gonna have on above my navel, and I've thought about, and I might, after everything heals, get a tattoo there. I'm not totally sure. I've never gotten a tattoo in my life. It would be the pretty much first and only if I would, and if I would, it would be something that I would show you guys. But that's something. I mean, honestly. To switch it a little bit to that aspect, and that, like, it gets into politics somewhat, healthcare, and the aspect of health and what people are having to deal with. The hernia needed to be fixed. That goes without saying.
Oh, I know. I
Because
carried mine for 6 years.
that's about the amount of time I had mine. And I had talked to you when you had yours done, that the doctors told you that if you had waited an hour longer, you'd have been dead.
Yep. And the reason why I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off is I couldn't afford health insurance. Well, the hospitals didn't want to operate on me because I had no health insurance. In fact, the one doctor I went to see, 3 years ago? No, it was 4 years ago. They took a what do you call those? An MRI.
Yeah.
He said it was a tumor, a lymphoma tumor. Lymphoma meaning fatty. So it was like, it was a tumor. And when I was in the hospital, when they were operating, during the pre-prep, before the OR, the one female doctor, a tall, pretty blonde, she said, "Whoever told you this was a tumor was," and I quote, she said, "Whoever told you this was a tumor was a fucking idiot."
Yeah. And honestly, the only bill that I have gotten in the mail from my insurance, which I'll hold it up somewhat. It's Blue Cross and Blue Shield from Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
The only bill that I've gotten that I could owe, $23.
Wow. I need special help with mine because my bills are like 60, almost 200, which is still pretty low. I mean, we're talking about 5 years ago it would have been a $15,000 bill at least.
But
now it's like $6,200.
Honestly, I can't bitch because so far I went to my family doctor, and then I saw the doctor that operated once for a consultation and then the surgery, and the only thing that I get is I might owe $23.
That's not bad.
That's not
bad. Only $3. I'd pay that.
Yeah.
Well,
The thing is, I do feel, and this is something I heard you say, and I agree with you 100% on it, healthcare should be a given, just like education.
Exactly, because look at all the money we spend in foreign aid. I mean, we give money to these other countries. Nobody gives us money, and then let's not even get into the bailouts. In fact, I don't know if you guys know, but Iceland, when because the bailouts, when that happened, the crash of 2007, 2008, that didn't just affect us; it affected the world. Mm-hmm. Well, Iceland arrested all the bankers that they could get their hands on that were involved in that, charged them with extortion, and jailed them.
Good.
And each Icelander got, they're in jail now. And each Icelander got 5,000 kroner, which a kroner is Norse for crown. I don't know how much that equates into American money. I do believe that their money has appreciated since the 80s. I don't know if it's worth a German mark or an English pound or an American dollar. The English pound, is, as far as I know, is still the most valuable currency in the world. But it seems to be up there. Each Icelander got 5,000 kroner as recompense. Tax-free.
Well, with the bailouts, what that is dealing with, and I saw a video where Jesse Ventura was talking about this, and it's very interesting. People bitch about welfare.
Oh, yeah.
And they say welfare is so...
Welfare. I was under the impression that we didn't pay a penny. But in my book, as you know, and I don't get paid that much at my job. I love my job, but it doesn't pay very well. In my book, if I'm paying $36 a year for welfare, what's that? I don't even miss it. 60 cents a week? I spend a lot more of that keeping my truck on the road.
Yeah.
I spend $30 to $40 a week keeping that truck on the road. Well, when I have actual income. I haven't been lately because I've not been going to work, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. I spend more than that on cigarettes every week. I mean,